Hey, folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Wednesday, January 22nd, and today I'm going to do something I don't usually do on this podcast, but stay with me. We are going to talk about something that I wrote this morning at SteelersNow.com, and this podcast is going to sort of be a companion to the article. They're going to kind of go hand in hand. So if you are listening to this or you are watching this and you have not seen my article about the Steelers offseason needs over at SteelersNow.com, I definitely encourage you to check it out, but you won't be lost or anything. I'm just going to kind of give some opinions about some of the things I wrote and sort of explain maybe why I think some things are the way they are. And so basically every offseason, I write the same story. I look at the Steelers offseason needs and I categorize them into three kind of lumps, right? You have immediate starting needs, places where there is just a glaring red spot on the depth chart where there is nobody that could possibly fill that role. And the Steelers absolutely need somebody to come in soon, and it has to be a sure thing. It can't be a question mark. It can't be, someone, that you're counting on, hoping on. Counting on is the right word. Hoping on is the wrong one, right? And then you have some depth or rotational needs where you may have some players in place, but they don't cover all the pieces of that role, or you don't have enough functional depth, or something like that. And then you have the future. And this is what the draft is supposed to be for, right? When the Steelers have been their best, they're drafting a year ahead, right? Troy Polamalu didn't play as a rookie. Cam Hayward didn't play his first two seasons, right? When the Steelers are at their best, they are drafting players for their future needs and not for their current needs. So ideally, in an ideal world, you'd like to get those big red marks, those open spots in the starting lineup filled early in free agency or by resigning your own free agents, right? Because you can do that starting right now. You could resign, you could resign Dante Jackson, Najee Harris, and Justin Fields, and done, right? They're all done. You could do that today. But even if you don't resign your own free agents, you can sign other people's free agents and make trades starting the second week of March, which is fairly early in the offseason process. And the draft and the free agency and trades also allow you to target the specific guy you're looking for with some degree of certainty. You can call, the Giants about a trade for Darius Slayton. You can say, oh, we want to talk to Chris Godwin's agent. We want to see what the Bengals are doing with T. Higgins. It's specific. When you go into the draft, it's crapshoot. You don't know what is going to be available to you at pick 21. You don't know what the teams ahead of you are going to do. And so when you're talking about those big red spots, the Steelers did it last year, right? They went into the season needing to draft a center. They went into the draft needing to draft a center, and they got one in the second round, and Zach Frazier, and they plugged him right in. 2022, they needed a wide receiver, and they got one in George Pickens, and they plugged him right in. But the Steelers also needed a wide receiver in last year's draft, and they didn't really get one that they could use as a starter, right? Things didn't go so well with Roman Wilson. So in an ideal world, you would take care of those big red spots on the depth chart ahead of time in free agency with a trade or by retaining some of your own pending free agents. Those second spots, you call them orange if you want or whatever, where you need a guy, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the guy. And sometimes it can be a draft pick. Sometimes it could be a minor free agent. Sometimes you can go into the draft, see what you're able to get, and then go back into free agency. I'm talking about players like Landon Roberts or a replacement for him as a run-stopping inside linebacker. Cam Sutton or a replacement for him in terms of a starting slot cornerback. These are positions that maybe don't have necessarily high value. Replacing Najee Harris in the running back rotation if they're just going to sign and promote Jaylen Warren. These are things that can be filled through free agency. They can also be filled at the draft. If you talk to Landon Roberts and say, you know what, E-Rob, you're getting older. We don't really like what you're asking for in terms of contracts. You can go in the draft saying, hey, at some point here, we got to get a run plug on linebacker. Like, that's not that hard. You can go into the draft saying, got to get a slot cornerback. That's not that big of a deal. Now, can you go into the draft saying you got to get a number one wide receiver? Probably not. Can you go into the draft saying you got to get your starting quarterback? Sheesh, I hope not in this draft class. So, a step down in positional, sometimes it's positional value, sometimes it's the importance of the role that you're looking for. Still need a backup tackle. They could draft one. I kind of doubt they will. I think they'll probably do free agency for that because their two starting tackles are young and inexperienced, and I think they'll want an older veteran guy. right? But so there's all that. And then you have those future needs, and those will almost certainly be completely filled by the draft. So, it's about building for the future. Where are you seeing potential holes opening up on your roster over the next year or two that you think drafting players? And if your whole draft class is that, then you have a really good team, because that means you don't have any other needs. So we talked about those glaring where right away needs: quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback. Those are the three to me that are very glaring. They need a quarterback. Obviously, I expect them to re-sign either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and probably do it before the start of free agency. So I think this one, the good news is it won't be that hard to fill. The bad news is I don't think you're getting a great option with either player. And so but I don't see, I mean, we wrote down the external options. I don't see a better one. That just seems to be the best they're going to get at the quarterback position. You look at wide receiver and cornerback, I think these are the two areas they should focus in free agency or possibly trades. Both the traditional free agents, guys like T. Higgins, but I'm not sure how likely he is to be available to them. I also think trades are an interesting part of this. Jair Alexander, for example, has an elevated contract with the Green Bay Packers, someone they could be looking to move on from. Cooper Kupp just talked yesterday about he's not sure about what his future looks like with the Los Angeles Rams. I think there's trades that could be made at both of those positions. Either way, I think wide receiver and cornerback are positions that probably should be taken care of before the Steelers get to the 2025 NFL draft. So when I'm looking, when I go to the Senior Bowl next week and I'm looking at draft prospects, I'm not really going to be focusing on like those guys in terms of first round. I feel like they need, and I'll look certainly, but I feel like they need to, especially at wide receiver where they could very easily double dip, but I feel like they need to address those positions before they get there. So where does that leave it? Well, in an ideal world, if you take care of those spots, you're looking at drafting the future of your defensive tackle position. I think they've ignored it for too long in the draft. They've tried to plug it in some mid-round guys. They drafted DeMarvin Leal and Isaiah Loudermilk, and I don't really think either of those guys has hit as a mid-round guy. Keanu Benton seems like one future piece. They need at least one, probably two more. I think it's time to take a big swing. I would not be opposed at all to the first-round pick being a defensive tackle, and sort of taking that same energy that they've put into the offensive line over the last two draft classes into the defensive line. But I think for that to happen, they've got to take care of wide receiver, cornerback, quarterback before we get to the draft. The other areas I think they have future needs, obviously running back. I'm not sure what they're going to do when it comes to replacing Najee Harris. They certainly could go out and sign someone in free agency just to make that process a little more streamlined. But I don't think Cordero Patterson has a lock on a roster spot either. He was quite poor as a kick returner, which is his primary role. I thought he did fine when they had him run the ball, but is that a place where they're looking for some future needs? Jalen Warren, also a free agent, restricted free agent. Now they can tender him and no big deal. They have him at least for next year, but they're going to have to work out a contract with him at some point. I don't know what his demands are and what the Steelers are going to want to pay to a free agent running back. That has been a thing in the past. So I think running back certainly there. And then the two that I don't think really anybody are talking about that I think they could take another couple swings at are guard and safety. Isaac Seumalo is going to be 32. He's entering the final year of his contract. And it would be nice to have a future replacement in mind before he hangs him up. And also, at safety, they've had DeMonte KZ as a veteran backup there for a couple of years. Miles Killebrew is the strong safety, obviously very experienced, but not really much of a defensive player. He's mostly a special teamer. It would be nice to get a younger player with some upside in that room, especially, not a great year for Minkah Fitzpatrick. If that downturn continues, having someone who could be a potential future option. And also, that can be a two birds with one stone thing if you get the right guy, a guy who could play in the slot now and also be a future option at free safety. So that's the way I broke down the Steelers' needs. I want to know what you guys think. We'll talk about this more with Smitty on Afternoon Drive, I'm sure. But I don't know what you guys think. Do you like my breakdown? Do you not like it? Where do you think I'm either underrating or overrating the talent they currently have on the roster? And what do you want to see the Steelers do in terms of player movements as they enter the 2025 offseason? That's all I got for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, enjoy.